Thank you all, and Maharaj, without any further delay, the stage is yours. Hare Krishna, thank you.
I know some of you, but many of you I don't know. But hopefully we get to know each other a little bit in the course of the evening. Can't hear? The microphone is on. Just have to put it right next to my mouth, and then you can hear me better. Okay. Is there anybody in our younger generation group needs a little introduction to Bhagavad Gita? Looking at you, I'm looking at you. You need a little introduction to Bhagavad Gita, or you're clear what Bhagavad Gita is? There's the cover. A little bit of background would help, right? Yes, okay. Well, you see a chariot, you see a chariot driver, and you see a person who's being drawn within the chariot. The person that's being drawn within the chariot, that's Arjuna. And the chariot driver is Krishna. And that's an interesting role reversal, because chariot drivers is like, a cab driver. And the cab driver is Krishna, and he's driving his devotee, Arjuna. He's taking the role of the servant of his devotee, Arjuna. And there's a big circumstance surrounding this. This Bhagavad Gita is a big book, an epic called Mahabharata. It's the history of Greater India, and it's the good guys and the bad guys in the history. The good guys against the bad guys, the good against evil, virtue against vice, and what it looks like and how it played out. And virtue wins, but not only virtue wins, but virtue that's connected with the supreme source of everything, Krishna, superlatively wins. That's the best. So that's the message of Bhagavad Gita. It takes place on a battlefield. And just before the battle is about to begin, Arjuna asks his dear friend and master, Krishna, to draw his chariot between the two armies. He sees who is arrayed at the army. On this side, that side, he names the names. He throws down his weapons, says, I cannot fight. He gives 7 very profound and compelling sounding reasons why he can't do this. He's ready to go to the forest, walk off the battlefield. I can't be a participant in this thing. His mind is reeling, he's very bewildered. Back and forth, because there's friendly talks. And then Arjuna comes to the position in chapter 2 where he says to Krishna, I don't know what's best for me. I take shelter of you, Shishya. Please instruct me. You become my guru, not just my friend, and instruct me. And then, so Bhagavad Gita is instructions from Krishna to Arjuna in the duties of life and how to perform them. There are different ways of describing what Bhagavad Gita is. It's a treatise on yoga. Most people, when they hear the word yoga, their mind thinks asanas, right? Yoga. You go to a yoga class, that's what you do. You do asanas. Maybe some breathing, pranayama. But it's much more than that. Yoga means linking with the Supreme. Linking, or connecting, and ultimately connecting with the Supreme. That's what yoga is, and Krishna teaches how to connect with the Supreme in different karma yoga, jnana yoga, raja yoga, dhyan yoga, bhakti yoga, different yoga systems, buddhi yoga. Different yoga systems are described in Bhagavad Gita. And what we're going to be doing this evening is discussing the values that are presented, some of the essential values that are presented in Bhagavad Gita. You see on the screen here, there's this thing, the Gita Values Project. I'll just share a little bit how I came to know about this. There are some scholars at Oxford University who wanted to take the elevated teachings of Bhagavad Gita and make them accessible to everyday people of this world, from the ivory tower down to ground level. And so they took the assistance of some people like me that move around and deal with everyday people all the time, and how to take the message of Bhagavad Gita and in a simple form, make it accessible to everyday people. So they called it the Gita Values Project. There's a little bit more to it, but they distilled it down to 6 values. And we're going to discuss the culture of, the iceberg of culture. So you know what an iceberg is. Everybody knows an iceberg. There's the tip that's above the surface of the water, and there's the big thing that's down below the surface of the water. This graphic was given to me by a friend who has a PhD in cultural engineering. Like, for example, when one corporation buys out another corporation, one of the first things they do is look at the culture of the corporation. And different parts of the culture of the corporation, they want to evaluate what's been going on and what do they want to go on. So the tip of the iceberg is what they call, in this field, is artifacts, or measurable, observable behaviors, norms, things that you can see and perceive and touch with the senses. That's part of the culture of an organization, whether it's a corporation or a group of people or an individual or whatever it is. Observable, measurable things. And then that's the tip of the iceberg, and below that is the values, let's say, of a group of people, their official beliefs. For example, it's not uncommon for a group of people to come together, they make a mission statement. When Prabhupada established ISKCON in America in 1966, it's part of the laws of the state of New York that he had to state the purposes of the organization so they could evaluate what category the organization should go. So he gave 7 purposes, which is essentially values, official beliefs, what we say is important, the purposes of ISKCON. And values drive behaviors, but also behaviors can modify values over time. And so there's an interplay between the two, but we're going to be focusing on values within Bhagavad Gita. And down at the bottom is, for an organization or a group of people or an individual, some unchallenged uncertainties, things that just doesn't matter. Values can change over time, behaviors can change over time, but some things don't change over time. So whatever those things are, that's assumptions. So with these people that work with culture, consider. For example, Bhagavad Gita, we're spirit soul. That doesn't change over time. Other things may change. That does change. And so forth. So with Bhagavad Gita, we're going to be focusing, this Gita Values Project focuses on the stated values within Bhagavad Gita. And again, they've distilled it down to 6. And each of the 6 has this well-refined language of what that value represents. So I think at the end, I can make that available to Krishna Priya. She can circulate the 6 and this paragraph that goes with them, so you have some idea of what these Oxford University folks came up with. along with, the assistance of others. Want to spend a little bit of time with its values, and it's connected to wisdom. Because just for example, I was recently in China, and there's a certain word that you don't use when you're in China, and it starts with a G. So instead I say, this is wisdom literature. Bhagavad Gita is wisdom literature because it's wisdom literature. And it's speaking about the source of everything. I don't use the G word. It's the source of everything, that from which everything comes, the absolute truth, different terminologies, anything but the G word. Not because of the people, but because of the government of the people. They just don't do that. So within Bhagavad Gita, there is information, but it's more than information. Here's a little, I think you'll appreciate this, because most of the people here have an Indian origin, one way or the other. Some years ago, maybe now 8 years ago, something like that, in India, there was a big conference in Delhi of educators, primary and secondary education and university education level educators. The purpose of the conference was to take a look at how we're doing in the field of education. And the keynote speaker said, I wasn't there, but I was told, his speech was very short and simple, not necessarily sweet. Education in India today can be summarized in 5 words. Information, 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 no transformation. So what came out of that conference was what the educators called value education to help bring about transformation. Transformation means building of character, because Vedic education is character development. And from character development comes good behavior. From values comes good behaviors. So character development, or wisdom literature. The Bhagavad Gita certainly has information, but it has much more. It has wisdom of how to live your life. How to live your life in such a way, yena mamupayanti te, in such a way that you can go to Krishna. Nice idea. Then there's a big difference between where we are and where we want to go. It's called a gap, or another language is liminal space. From one of my sannyas godbrothers, I learned this liminal space. He's not even English speaking. He's German speaking by birth. This word limen is a Latin word, and it means in between this and that. Just like, for example, when at the front door, there's the outside and there's the inside and there's the door, and at the bottom of the door there's a little piece of wood or something. It's in carpentry terms, it's called a limen. It's neither here nor there. That's liminal space. Or where Hiranyakashipu was killed was neither here nor there. It was not inside nor outside. It was in a liminal space. It was on the porch, or out, not inside the building, not outside. Or a hallway, or a veranda is a liminal space in architectural terms. So limen means between where you are and where you want to go. And in life, there's lots of that. There's where we want to go. You could say our goals, or the objectives that we wish to achieve in our life, or something, or some period of time, a career goal or something. So, but there's a gap between where we are and where we want to go. That's the liminal space. And in hearing the message of Bhagavad Gita, their values are high, and we're not there yet, but there's some function of Krishna that will help us. That's the yoga function. And he'll help us get there. That's an important, very important theme in Bhagavad Gita and principle in Bhagavad Gita. So here's another nice painting, and then we'll begin. I like this painting. It's a young girl who's trying to go somewhere, and there's a bird that's helping her get there, and she's just walking to get to where she wants to go. So we're like that in life, and in applying the principles of Bhagavad Gita, it's a little bit like that too. There's things we learn, wisdom that we learn that it may make sense to us, but it may take a while for it to become applied in our life. And with saying that, let's move on to Gita Values number 3, because I've already recently discussed values 1 and 2. I'll share with you what they are and do like a mini 3-minute summary of values 1 and 2. 1, Samadarshana. Sama, Darshana. Sama is equal vision. Pandita, Samadarshana. A learned person sees with equal vision. Vidya Vanaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastini Shuni Chaiba Supaki Cha. Pandita Samadarshana. A learned person sees with equal vision. Although there's varieties mentioned, an elephant, a dog eater, a brahmana, those are diversities named in the verse, but a pandit sees within, there's the spirit soul. That's the sameness within diversity. So it's a principle of oneness in diversity, and the foundation of that is the spiritual conception of who we are. That's Samadarshana. Second value the Oxford University folks came up with was ahimsa. And everybody knows what ahimsa is. You know what ahimsa is, right? Nonviolence, right? Yes? Ahimsa? You've heard of that term? Ahimsa, nonviolence. It's like, it's a popular term with Buddhists, but it's a term in Bhagavad Gita also. We don't, so quickly, ahimsa in common vernacular is don't hurt anybody. That's a nice idea. Don't kill animals. Ahimsa is often applied to killing of animals. Don't kill others. Don't kill animals. Don't kill. But it's more than not of inflicting harm to others. It's when there's someone that's suffering and you know what can be done to mitigate their suffering and you don't do anything. It's a kind of violence. Yes? Supposing I see some bully beating up on a kid on the sidewalk and I don't do anything. I'm not perpetrating violence, but I'm permitting violence, or a tacit participant, a passive participant. So, real nonviolence means knowing what is the root cause of suffering and relieving people of the root cause of suffering. What's the root cause of suffering? The root cause of suffering from the Vedic perspective, there's lots of things of what it isn't. I won't go through that list. What it is ignorance. Because from ignorance comes ignorant desire. From ignorant desire comes ignorant activity. From ignorant activity comes suffering. So the mitigation or removal of suffering is removal of ignorance. So the best principle, the best application of the principle of nonviolence, or ahimsa, is to propagate knowledge, transcendental knowledge. Because then people can become not only freed from suffering in this life, but permanently. The cycle of birth and death is finished. Purnar Janma Na. no more birth and death, by awakening knowledge. So there's much to say, but that's the first two values, Samadarshana and Ahimsa. And now comes Gita Values number 3, Amanitva, or humility. From Bhagavad Gita, there's chapter 13. Okay, there's a lot of things moving on in the back of the room. In chapter 13, it's a nice chapter where Arjuna is asking Krishna 6 questions. And it's 3 sets of 2. Matter and spirit, matter and spirit, matter and spirit. That's Sankhya, by the way, is matter and spirit. And the categories of matter, categories of spirit, we belong to the category of spirit. So one of the pairs of questions is Jnanam and Gyayam, knowledge and the object of knowledge. So when Krishna gives the list of the items of knowledge, first in the list is this one, Amanitvam Adambitvam, humility and pridelessness. Amanitvam Adambitvam. So humility. So we're going to explore this Gita value, humility, by first asking, what does it mean? There's a dictionary, Merriam-Webster dictionary definition. Very simple. The state of being humble. Humility has its origin in the Latin word humilis, which means low. Humilis means low. It's not only in Bhagavad Gita, many cultures of the world, Chinese culture has it for sure. Confucius, humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. In a little bit that I know about Confucius, he didn't teach about anything spiritual. He just taught values. So Confucius, or Confucianism, is respected by the Chinese government because it's not theistic. It's teaching values. Humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. Here's another, a Chinese proverb. Be like the bamboo, the higher you grow, the deeper you bow. Chinese proverb. Here's another. Have character before emerging from the soil. Remain unassuming even after having reached the clouds. Another Chinese saying, glorifying the bamboo. Or another. Modesty is the foundation of all virtues. Pride is the chief of all evils. Same idea. So there's this conventional idea of what humility is, but there's a misconception of what humility is. Some people think humility is not good. It's for people who have low self-esteem. Yourself bad, worthless, lazy, dumb, etc. Or just keeping quiet and tolerating. No, a humble person may remain quiet, they may speak, but just be tolerant. I tolerate you. Or some people think it's just blind following without being thoughtful. Just be humble and don't think too much. Just follow, be humble. So it's none of those things. According to Bhagavad Gita, it's a virtue. Just like I mentioned, chapter 13, it's an item of knowledge. It's a lakshana, a characteristic of someone who has knowledge is they're humble. The opposite is true. Someone that doesn't have knowledge, they're prideful. They may think they know something, but they don't really have knowledge if they're proud. So it's a virtue that you can observe. There's the tip of the iceberg part, there's the behavior part, but it's resting upon what's below the tip of the iceberg, or the value, or one's understanding of who I am and one's character. Humility rests on understanding of oneself. Say it different ways, it comes out the same. If you know who you are, then it's easy to be humble. And if you don't know who you are, it's easy to not be humble, because you want some recognition, or you want something or something. So you have to present yourself in a certain way so that you know who you are and people know that you know who you are, but you really don't know who you are. A classic example of this in our tradition is two. Some of you are a little newer, you don't know who is Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya came to give the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, and specifically the chanting of the holy name, as a means of purification for this age, the Yuga Dharma. And he became a sannyasi, and he was criticized by some other sannyasis. You don't do what the sannyasis do. You're not sitting in a quiet place studying Vedanta Sutra day and night. You're going out into the public and singing and dancing with common people. And sannyasis don't do that. They don't hang out with common people, what to speak of sing and dance with them. So what are you doing? And humility, he said, my spiritual master considered me to be a fool, and said, because you don't have the capacity to understand Vedanta Sutra, you should just chant Hare Krishna and purify yourself. And so I did. And when I did, something happened. My whole existence became transformed. Now, he had demonstrated in his childhood that he was a super scholar, but he was speaking as if he was not. He was not proud of his erudition. He was speaking as if he was not, with the purpose of impressing upon his companion sannyasi, what's really important is to know who you are, not just study Vedanta Sutra. Anyway, there's another example, but humility rests on understanding of oneself. So that leads to the big question, who am I? I'll share something with you. I heard this directly twice, once in Los Angeles, once in New York. In New York, there was a devotee who had become like the leader. Not like the leader, he was the leader. It was when, in the very, very, very early days, 1966, Prabhupada was starting the Hare Krishna movement in Manhattan. And one devotee, large body, very strong, powerful person named Brahmananda, asked Prabhupada one morning, they were going for a morning walk, how am I to remain humble? Because I get so much recognition, so much credit, so much honor, so much praise. How am I to remain humble? So Prabhupada gave the following answer. In the spiritual sky, there's unlimited numbers of Vaikuntha planets, chief of which is Krishna Loka. In one corner of that vast spiritual sky, there's a cloud called the Mahatattva, cloud of material energy. And in that cloud of the material energy, Mahavishnu is reclining. And it forms the causal ocean, the Karna ocean. And from the body of Mahavishnu come unlimited numbers of universes as he exhales. And in one of those universes, there's our little solar system. And in that little solar system, there's one planet named Earth. And that one planet Earth has 7 continents. And amongst the 7 continents, one of those continents is North America. And in North America, there's a set of there's one country, United States, with 50 states. And now we're going to go here. In one of those states is the state of Connecticut. The state of Connecticut, there's different counties. One of them is Hartford County. And in Hartford County, there's a place called Avon. And that place that's called Avon takes up a certain geographic area. In that area of Avon, there's this community, a residential community, where there's the township, and there's, what's the street here? Ellsworth Place, with the zip code and everything. And where that red dot is, there's the house where we are. Took it off the real estate map. In case you want to buy the house, that's what you have to do, find a picture of the house. And so, in the big picture of things, how big are we? That's what Prabhupada said to Brahmananda. So here we are with this picture of things. We're standing on a street corner on Mott Street, and you want to know, how do we remain humble? The reality is, it's not low self-esteem. The reality is we're just very tiny in the big picture of things. We're really, 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 really tiny, 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 tiny. And if we're in our tininess, then who are we really? But the good news is, although we're tiny, we're part of something that's very great. An integral angsa of the big great. Tiny, tiny fragmental spark of a big fire. And the big fire is Krishna, and we're part and parcel. Mame Vangsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We're eternally connected as a tiny fragmental part of the Supreme. And if we can understand in reality who we really are, then it's really easy to be humble. When there's acceptance of who we really are, we're significant because we're part of that supreme whole, but in our own capacity, we're very tiny. And with acceptance of who we are comes acceptance of higher teachings. This is the Gita Values message. So one devotee that's part of this group of teachers who were consulted by the Oxford University folks, his name is Adi Purusha. He's been in Vrindavan teaching at the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education for maybe 20 plus years. He was visiting in Washington, D.C. This chart came from him. In 1 week, he was giving the Gita Values, and this chart came from him. So it's I like it. When we don't accept an undesired event, it becomes anger. When we accept it, it becomes tolerance. When we don't accept uncertainty, it becomes fear. When we accept it, it becomes adventure. We don't accept others' bad behavior towards us, it becomes hatred. When we accept it, it becomes forgiveness. When we don't accept others' success, it becomes jealousy. When we accept it, it becomes inspiration. And then comes the punchline. Acceptance is the key to handling life well. This acceptance of, on the one hand, our tininess, but on the other hand, the appeal that Krishna makes to Arjuna, which means he makes it to us, nimitta matram bhavyasabhyasachin, become my instrument. So then, as the instrument of one who is very great, we can do something great, although we're quite insignificant. Connection with the Supreme, by the devotional connection with the Supreme, there's meaning to something that's otherwise quite significant. So this is Gita's message. In the Bhagavad Gita, acceptance is demonstrated by service in the mood of surrender. Of course, surrender means, as the concluding message of Bhagavad Gita, surrender unto Krishna. Some of you know the verse. Some of you know some Bhagavad Gita verses. One that you may know, if out of many, the last instruction Krishna gives. I'll say it slowly. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yashami ma suchaha. Moksha yashami ma suchaha. Ma suchaha means don't worry. Moksha, we all know, liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from the bondage of the cycle of birth and death. One can achieve this liberation from bondage by taking shelter of Krishna. And taking shelter of Krishna is this mood of surrender unto Krishna and service. Finally, almost finally, humility is being in our natural state, acting from the spiritual platform, realizing that we are insignificant spirit souls who can make a difference when we embrace the mood of service. That's Bhagavad Gita's humility message. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. That's the amanitvam adambitvam. Adambitvam, pridelessness. They go together. Humility and pridelessness, they even sound similar. Amanitvam adambitvam. Here's Mother Teresa. If you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know what you are. It's not this tradition only, Bhagavad Gita tradition, it's wisdom. And humility aided Arjuna to understand himself and what he must do in the greater scheme of things. So Krishna had a plan. He wanted Arjuna to be the instrument for his plan. He informed Arjuna, if you don't do it, it's going to be done anyways, because it's my plan. But you have the opportunity to be engaged in my service, so please do. An open invitation in humility. Humility is not weakness. It nurtured Arjuna's self-esteem, self-confidence, and courage. And it is the jewel of the broad-minded and is the key to a spiritual life. This other slide I like. This is someone receiving the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. Humility gives acceptance. We mentioned acceptance. Acceptance gives courage. Courage gives openness. Openness gives access to higher teachings. So now is the fun part. That was the blah, blah, blah part. Now comes the fun part. The fun part is Krishna Priya, I asked her before this evening to figure out role play so you all could apply yourselves to the teachings. So you have it all set up? Okay. Let me just run through. The next slide is going to explain there's 2 role plays. Here's one. Demonstrate these 3 different responses to praise for some service well done. One is denial or rejection of praise. No. Another is yes. Pride or ego becoming inflated upon hearing one's service being complimented. And then the third is neither of those. Deflecting deserving praise by directing that praise to Krishna and Guru for their mercy to engage an unqualified person, such as me, in any service, then providing the ability to do something for them. That's humility. And it's not the no or yes. Dynamic expression of humility. Okay, so should you want us to move so they can have the stage up front here? Huh? Okay. You're part of the drama? Okay. What do you want me to do? You want the microphone. Here's the microphone. You want two microphones.
Hi, Krishna. I'm just going to introduce what's going to be happening here. So the three scenarios that we see on the screen, they're going to be demonstrated one by one in the order. And we see in many like festivals or whenever we have gatherings like these that there's a lot of services that go on behind the scenes and different people do those services. And definitely as a part of a relationship, there's a lot of praise and appreciation. And with the topic of humility, we learn three different ways that people react very generally to these appreciations. And the final one, the ideal is with a mood of humility. So first we will have the denial or rejection scenario. And this was really last minute, so I apologize for any like shortcomings. You guys ready? So you're gonna say no, no, no.
Hey, Mohan, I saw that after the festival last night, you were washing the dishes. Amazing job.
Oh, no. I felt like I did nothing.
No, you were standing there washing dishes for 4 hours straight.
It felt like 2 seconds.
So that we see it was the no, 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 where you just deny that you did anything. And that may seem like you're extremely humble, and they may really be, but they did something. So instead of denying it and making this person seem like their appreciation was unwarranted, there's different ways to deal with it. And the second one, which we will be doing, is also not the correct way. And this is the method of being inflated by someone's appreciation.
Vishta, you sing so nicely. You should teach singing to some kids.
I know, right? Every time I sing, people just swarm around me. They tell me how good I sing. I was actually wondering why no one walked up to me today. Thanks for noticing.
You're welcome.
So that was the second scenario, which we're not supposed to do either. So that's definitely like you've been trying to look for that praise, and your service was also not really service in a way, because you're looking for some sort of reward. And when you're looking for some sort of reward, it's not pure service. And the final one is deflecting the deserving praise. And deflecting is a nice word. And deflecting just means that you're not throwing it away from yourself, but you're kind of like, it's with you, but you're passing it on to where it's from, where you get your credential or your qualities from. So this is the final one, and we're going to start. Haribol.
Haribo.
I just really wanted to say that the audio-video setup you have here takes a lot of work, because I've tried, and it's not easy. There's like a gazillion wires, and Maharaj calls them spaghetti, and it's really hard to understand where to plug in each one. So hats off to your service.
Thank you. Yeah, it took me a little while to get the hang of it, but Maharaj does so much and puts so much effort into these programs. The least I could do is just get the streaming set up.
I agree. Just any small expression of gratitude is enough for Krishna to smile at us. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So those were the three. Those were the three scenarios, and the third one, as you all can see, is probably the best way to deal with any appreciation that comes towards you, because it's true. Like any qualification or ability we have does come from our parents or spiritual teachers or friends, the relationships we have, the people who inspire us. So thank you.
This is similar but different. This is a leader that gets feedback from a subordinate, the room for improvement kind of feedback. And sometimes it isn't taken so well. Sometimes a leader is lacking humility and they get a little agitated when they get some feedback. And instead of taking it nicely, they become agitated and they start insulting their subordinate, saying not nice things and not acknowledging their room for improvement category. So that's not so good. Then much better is if a leader can be humble and recognize there's always room for improvement. And here's this person that's very kindly, respectfully indicating of some room for improvement for me. And so I'm very, very grateful that they did come forward and speak like this, especially not only that they did in a respectful manner, but it's true. And it's I find it very helpful, and I apologize for my shortcoming and try to make the needed improvement so everything gets better. That's from the leadership side. So I don't know what you're going to do with this one, but good luck. You have a role play for this one? No idea.
I mean, we can pull it off the last one.
Yeah, help. They didn't see this one.
I think we can do it.
Huh?
I think we can do it.
She's creative.
Go on. Just tell me that there was hair in the samba. Like, Hare Krishna, thank you so much for cooking with your team. There was hair in your samba.
Hi Krishna Vishta, I loved your cooking. The only downside was that there was hair in your samba.
There was hair in samba?
Yes.
No, that probably was not. There was probably like somebody running around in the kitchen when I was like away.
Trust me, it was hair.
Yeah, but like not my hair, because I'm pretty careful, you know, and I have any hair loss, so to speak.
But there's still a possibility that there was hair in your
It wasn't
samba.
my hair.
Then whose
Why are you
hair?
getting so angry?
But then whose hair was?
I don't know who was in the kitchen when I wasn't there.
That means it had to be you.
We don't talk about that. Just you can stop fault finding.
Okay. Sorry.
So yeah, that was what we're not supposed to do. And the same, I guess, complaint. A leader who is humble receives respectful feedback and responds to constructive evaluation in a manner that is equally respectful. So say the same thing again.
Hi Krishna Vishta, I loved your cooking, but there was one problem with your samba. There was hair in it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you happen to eat that by any chance, or did you find it in your plate?
No, I just removed it. And
Okay,
then I drank it.
I'm so sorry. Actually, I think I should have taken the advice of hairnets, because when we cook in the temple, we use hairnets, but we don't really apply the same when we're cooking at home. So I really apologize, and I'm glad you didn't eat it, because you probably would have gotten sick. I'm so sorry. Next time, I'm going to the store to buy a pack of hairnets.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Spontaneous devotional service. But you get the idea. And we have some time. It's 8 o'clock. If there's some topics on this Gita Values subject that you'd like to discuss, then that's the best part of any gathering is the discussion part, from my experience anyways. So, and another experience is the first question is always takes longer. But if so, I'll be patient and see if there's something you'd like to discuss. Yeah, look at that. Very good. Thanks.
Yeah. Maharaj, like based on these two questions, the first one, we have to be humble and redirect to Krishna and Guru, and then apply the principle of humility. And then in the second question, also like similar thing, accept and the feedback and respond in a way of apologetic or respectful way. But in real situation, this is like ideal, but in real situation, even though we go with these options, we still have a duality where there is a small tinge of the other options will be there. Like
yes.
So how to deal with that, even though we apply this, but in the real world, there is always a tinge of the wrong answers, even though we apply the right answer.
How to connect the heart with the mouth. Yeah. Well, one of the phrases I like is, there's no substitute for purity. Or, until we're pure, there's going to be a mix. And most of us are not yet pure, so there's going to be a mix. So there's, from our position, your position, my position, each of our positions, there should be acknowledgement, this is the acceptance principle, that I'm not there yet, I am where I am, and I should just be honest with myself. But if I want to practice moving in the direction of purity, that the behavior part should match, and I should be ready to acknowledge the value part is not there yet. But at least the behavior part should be, and I should be honest with myself, first of all, and then in turn, in my dealings with others, in various ways you can practice and exhibit I'm not there yet message, although I'm trying to behave that way. I mean, here's an example from me personally. Someone, about 2 weeks ago, very respectfully gave me some room for improvement feedback. They were really nervous about doing it because they didn't want to be perceived as a fault finder or an offender or anything like that. But because they care, they expressed in a caring and respectful way. And they were really surprised by the response. I was like, thank you very much. Wow, I'm doing this or not doing that, and other persons are they're being hurt by my doing this or not doing that. I had no idea. Just blind to that perception and that feeling. So, thank you. And now I'm going to try to make a course correction. And now that I'm aware that in some cases with some people, that means some improvement. Several days later, they expressed they're not used to that kind of response when they give feedback to a superior, because it's somebody who looks up to me as a superior. But so it's how to be less than perfect at the same time. I'm not perfect, but I want to move in that direction. So it's that transparently wanting to move in the direction of is what you do when you're not there yet.
Yep.
When you're giving and receiving.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's easy on the giving or the receiving end. Here's an example I really like, and I've spoken about it a number of times recently. It's Hanuman's travel to Lanka, and the first obstacle that he encounters is Mainaka. Mainaka arises from the sea, offering a personified form of Mainaka appears on the mountainside and invites Hanuman to rest and take some nice refreshments, because the mountain has nice refreshments. And the reason behind it is Mainaka received some kindness from his father, from Vayu. Vayu, without all the detail, because it's nice, the detail is nice, but Vayu had protected Mainaka. Mainaka wanted to pay back out of gratitude, makes a statement. The statement in Ramayana is, it is an essential feature of Sanatana Dharma that when one receives some act of kindness from another, the expression of gratitude must be there in some way to display that gratitude in some form of service. It's a Sanatana Dharma principle, and therefore please accept. He doesn't accept. But he doesn't say no, 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 and he doesn't say yes, yes, yes. What he does is he descends and he just touches the mountain to show his expression of gratitude. And please allow me, I have some important mission to complete. Please allow me, please release me from this obligation. And it was very graceful and, and well received, well done and well received. Not easy to be, graceful. Someone wants honor and you don't say no, you don't say yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm on to serve a mission on behalf of Lord Ramachandra. I can't stop. I must go. Please allow me. But something touching. This happened when I was this happened when I was in China. Because part of the culture, part of the chart, there is a certain amount of remaining culture in China, a big amount. And one of the things that people like to do is, as in Vedic culture, they like to offer a gift. So sometimes they would offer things that's just like, what? And so what to do? I could, say no. So one of the things that I thinking of this example of Hanuman, I just said, let me touch it. And, say thank you and acknowledge the gift. And please find someone else where you can give this gift to now that I've touched it, etc. I'll put my foot on the shoes that I don't need, and then you can give the shoes to somebody that needs shoes. So a gesture that's to be a cultured person it takes a lot of culture to be a cultured person, to receive something that's an expression of kindness and not just reject it or not accept it. It's not appropriate. There's no substitute for purity, again.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Someone else? Yeah.
Yeah, we spoke about the humanity and everything. We'll be good, we'll be nice, etc. But the world around us is not like that.
That's right.
Not all are like that. How to handle those situations?
Well, good question. Very practical question. That humility starts with Gita value number 1, which is samadarshana, which means to know who you are, and therefore you can know who others are. And same here, if you know who you are. For example, Hanuman, the next example that the obstacle he encountered was Surasa. And, she was a test by the demigods to see what he's going to do when there's an obstacle. And, he has some dialogue with her. Anyway, so it depends. And in the final case, Simhika, he just destroys her. He doesn't have a dialogue with her. She's the one that captures him by his shadow and wants to eat him. And she's an evil person. So he deals with, it's the modes of nature. So depending upon the modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, one may deal differently. Depending upon so there's assessment of the mode of nature personality that you're dealing with. And according to the personality you're dealing with, your behavior is going to match that particular mode of nature. Really nice lesson. Ramayana, I like. When he gets to Lankini, she slaps him really hard. He's not moved. He just, with his open hand, he knocks her to the ground. realizes, Brahma said, when I'm defeated by a monkey, this is the end of the Rakshasa dynasty. So the time has come. So you may enter. So my answer to your question is it depends on the confrontational type of person. Each of them were obstacles or confrontations. One was a mode of goodness kind. Here's enjoyment. Anyway, passion, ignorance. Depends. You maintain your equilibrium. But in any case, specifically it says he was smiling, Hanuman. So we don't lose our demeanor or our sense of who we are. So in a spiritual sense, that the bottom of the iceberg is we're spirit soul. And as spirit souls, we're meant for service to the Supreme. And you never depart from that. So depending upon the circumstance, you don't depart from that, but your behavior may be to match the circumstance. And that's humility. You know who you are and you act according to who you are, circumstance specific. Become retaliatory or any of those kind of things. You act circumstance specific with full remembrance of who you are as servant of the Supreme. And you can act strongly, or you can act very mildly, or whatever is appropriate for the circumstance, but don't depart from who you are. That beginning part of Sundarakanda is really good. I mean, Hanuman's a good teacher. Okay, Advaita Chandra, you want to take the microphone?
Maharaj, thank you so much for the lecture. Thank you all for coming again. So we'll serve prasadam actually downstairs. Are you able to do kirtan for some time in the temple room? Okay. Maharaj, is it okay if people want to meet you? Okay. So if anyone wants to meet Maharaj, you can spend a few minutes here. Okay, so 3 options. Okay, food, kirtan, and then meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.